Anyway, I'm just going to say very few things about where my ideas come from, the influences I have. And it's only a half an hour lecture, so I'm going to have to rush through a lot of images. So I might not be able to talk about everything. But just very few things. My very first influence was my dad. When I was 7 years old, he taught me my first painting, drawing classes, color theory, and how to sketch. Because he's an artist who went to art school, but he didn't make a living as an artist. He eventually got a job in the central bank in Mexico, which is the mint. That's where they make the money. And he got a job as a criminalist inside the bank. They have that internal security because that's one of the few institutions in Mexico where they cannot get corrupted. They cannot afford corruption there because they print the money. And so my dad had a museum of crime in his office, all these forgeries all around. And had great stories. One of my favorite stories was a French a forger who, in France, he was forging francs at the time. Francs, he did Moroccan money. Then he was arrested there, then left France after he was released, went to Mexico. In Mexico, he was forging dollar bills. He was forging Mexican pesos, Venezuelan, Cuban, everything. The Mexican police had about 10 years to catch him, and the only way they caught him was because his name was San Pietro. Although he was French, he left his girlfriend in France, and she was really mad at him. And she's the one who contacted the Mexican police, and they arrested him. And then my dad had to interview him when he was in jail, just to understand why did he do it. And they asked him, you went to art school, you well-trained, and the guy said, well, also he came from wealthy families. He didn't need to do any forgeries. So the guy said, well, I just did it for the thrills. And anyway, so he became very good friends with my dad somehow because my dad was bringing supplies for him. And he did a portrait of my father with India ink, and it looks just like a black and white photograph. You don't even see brushwork. It's just an amazing story. Eventually, this artist got released 10 years after, went back to France, and didn't go back to the forgery business. But all this to say, all of this was an influence on me. You will see a lot of things that are look-alike, because I always kind of had the challenge in my mind that what if I wanted to be a forger artist, do some forgeries? So that's one side. So I'm going to start with my early forgeries. So here's one of my favorite artists from all times, Francisco Goya. And I saw his original etchings when I was a student at the San Francisco Art Institute. I saw a whole collection of the disasters of war. And as an assignment, we either had to write a paper or make some artwork. And I didn't want to write anything, so I went for the artwork. So this is my version. So I was still a student back in 1983. This is called Contra el Bien General. And it was perfect for Ronald Reagan, who called himself a Contra when he was supporting the Contras in Nicaragua. Anyway, so I did several pieces from Goya. This is also from the disasters of war. And I like to add something contemporary, as in the previous one. And I wanted to mix, if you go to Disney World, if you recall, when you get in, they say, welcome to the happiest place on earth. And I wanted to combine that with the unhappiest place on earth, which for me is war. Here is Walt Disney in 1942 with a Mickey Mouse gas mask for children. You could actually go Google Mickey Mouse gas mask, and you will see the actual design of the mask. I think it's in the Disney Museum somewhere. And this was my combination of both things. Great deeds with the dead. Another one of Goya's is from a different series, from the Caprichos, where Goya makes a satire of superstition back in Spain. And according to this superstition, the teeth of hanging a man will bring you good luck. So this lady is trying to pull a tooth from this guy for good luck. To me, what is amazing is not the idea of good luck out of a tooth from a hanging man, but the idea that you could go out of your house, look around, and see if you see somebody hanging that you could get a tooth from. So That's my version with sort of like rat fink with a Mexican hat and Snow White. That's another from the same series, from the Disasters of War. This is one of the most famous etchings by Goya. The Sleep of Reason produces monsters, except that I don't see the monsters here. They are all, endangered species like the owl. The bats are good for agriculture, and the cats. I mean, I love cats. I have 2 cats that I adore. So nothing here seems scary to me. So I made my own version of that with really scary flying things like stealth bombers, Mohawk missiles. I mean helicopters, Tomahawk missiles. And I just left the owls as pets, actually like good companions. Right on the, how does this work? Oh, here. Right here, my cats love to play with these red lights. Right here I have a couple of nuclear, there's a nuclear plant with drums with waste coming out of it. So another thing, lately, I've been dealing with issues of immigration because there's sort of like a xenophobic wave since 2011. And I just tried to play with that. Here is the Holy Inquisition after Goya's Caprichos. And I don't know if you could notice in the background, well, here is Speedy Gonzalez, let me see, and the former general attorney, which was also Gonzalez, what's his first name? Alberto Gonzalez. So right here, and his doppelganger. They both got away with everything. This, you will see later who's Duppy. Yeah, I'm not gonna say much about it. So this is a more recent piece, and you might recognize it. That's also after the Caprichos. Right, and that's sort of like, surrounded by all these monsters that are about to get him to Obama. In the Spanish translation is the original from Goya. It says, "You will not escape." And I don't know if you could see on the bottom. Unfortunately, if I enlarge it, it will be off the frame, but this is like a little KKK chicken just running around. That's another one I did after his inauguration. And it's after a French engraving. And here, you have like a carriage with all the horses. I did a lot of green people here because Obama said he liked arugulas. So I made an army of arugulas here. He's carrying the world here, so it's like Atlas. This is called Atlas and the Arugulas. And right on top is Hillary Clinton with a violin, very happy. His wife, Michelle Obama, and Joe Biden here. So what I love about this thing is that there is no wheels. So no matter how hard the horses are pulling, it seems like it's going nowhere. That's another one I did. The headache. The headache. Let me see if I could make it a little smaller. No, that's as small as it gets. And this is going to be at the Metropolitan Museum in September. You're going to see it in person. It's going to be an exhibition called The Art of the Jester. So I'm going to go quickly. These are very old works of mine. These are big charcoal drawings. They're about the same size as what you see on the screen. I did this when Ronald Reagan invaded Nicaragua back in 1984 for an exhibition that was organized by Lucy Lippard. It was called Art Against Intervention in Central America. So this is when he almost got caught with the Iran-Contra scandal. But anyway, so I'm going to go quickly through those because I want to talk about many other issues. This is George Bush's father when he invaded Panama. And this is around the first Persian Gulf War. So that's another of my charcoal drawings. Now, I'm going to talk to another influences in my work. I grew up Catholic. I stopped being religious when I was about 18 years old. And I remember arguing with my mom. My mom was wondering, why aren't you going to confess? And I told her, well, you're not going to confess either, Mom. And my mom would say, well, that's different. I'm a woman. And I said, what's the difference with that, Mom? Well, a woman should never tell her sins to any man. So she won the argument there. But eventually, you know, I was just usually really bored, and I had actually really good physics teacher. Astrophysics studies and mathematics and chemistry, and somehow I replaced my beliefs for more scientific approaches. And today I am beyond being an atheist. Now I even doubt atheism because all the quantum mechanics discoveries where particles could go from nowhere to somewhere. You know, I used to go for the Lavoisier law that, you know, nothing is created or destroyed, only transformed. So I thought, oh yeah, well, that proves that there is no God. But eventually I discovered that we don't really know where everything is coming from and where are we going into. So I am more like an agnostic now. But in any case, the religious art stuck to me in my head. So I am very iconographic, and I cannot help myself to use religious iconography as some of my vocabulary to express all kinds of ideas. One of the most interesting books I have read is a book by Leo Steinberg, an art historian who did this book. It's called The Sexuality of Christ in Renaissance Art and Modern Oblivion. And the whole book is about the sexuality of Christ, and it's focused on the point about Christ being just a human being with feelings of sexuality, you know, flesh and bones, human being. He has a whole chapter on this single painting where I'm sorry, I went too far. Where you could see baby Jesus is actually having an erection and holding himself and kissing mom. I don't know if this is the origin of child molesting in some priests or the church, but I hope not. But this is an amazing painting, and this was a painting by Robert Campin. So it's Madonna and Child in an interior. Another painting from the very same book is this one, and this is done by Martin van Heemskerk, The Man of Sorrows from 1525. I decided to use this icon when Jesse Helms was attacking the National Endowment for the Arts back in 1991, I think, after Andrés Serrano's Priest Christ and the Robert Mapplethorpe controversy. So I used this to make a charcoal drawing that is called Not Good for Funding. So let me see if I could enlarge it. So. So I'm going to just skip this into more of my other religious discussions I've been having. And other things I do is something I will explain later is reverse anthropology. Sometimes I think what will happen if, you know, the conquest would have been actually of the Aztecs conquering Europe. What would have happened? So in this case, I used the format of ancient books from Mexico to express what happened during the conquest, how indigenous cultures were pretty much destroyed. Here you see Columbus soldiers cutting the hands of the Taino and Arawak Indians in the Caribbean. Most of them just die of bleeding after the cutting of their hands. The reason they cut their hands was because they put a quote of gold. The Indians have to bring gold to them, and since there is no gold in the Caribbean, they just got punished for that. This one is just called hands. So, so sometimes I just decide to play the dichotomy between civilization and barbarism, and where you don't know who is the barbarian and who is civilized. Here I have Superman as who is the perfect alien from outer space. As a pilgrim, talking to an Aztec god, the god of rain, Tlaloc. And it's hard to see in here, but right here there's a UFO with the Aztec god Quetzalcoatl in his duality of life and death. This one is called Xenophobic Nightmare. Oh, The Governor's Nightmare, I'm sorry. That's the one. This is when Pete Wilson had that Proposition 187, where children of undocumented immigrants should not be eligible for school or services. So I decided just to make a Pete Wilson right here in the middle. And I decided to play the stereotype of the Aztec savage. And on the upper left corner, I have this other another kind of cannibalistic image. You know, if you are Catholic, you go to communion, you know that in communion you are eating the flesh of God and drinking his blood in the communion. So from that perspective, this thing is just kind of like a communion as well with Pete Wilson. This one is called Xenophobic Nightmare in a Foreign Language. The translation, this is Afrikaans, that what they speak in South Africa. I made this right before the end of apartheid in South Africa. And it translates as, I want to wake up now. So, so these are like some of the images of reverse anthropology. I see a lot of the Spaniards build up churches on top of pyramids. So they were imposing, you know, Renaissance architecture over pre-Columbian architecture. So I'm doing the opposite here. So I'm imposing pre-Columbian designs on European work. This is a piece by Rembrandt, The Lady with Fan. So that was a whole series I did on a book that I found in the flea market. This is the end of the death of Columbus, right here. So this is a collaboration I did with a Filipino artist. This has a long story. This will take me 15 minutes. I lost this painting in the freeway. I recovered it, patched it back. It was commissioned by the San Jose Museum. Then it was rejected because they thought it was too angry. We painted little, you know, like this bunny rabbit to tell them we're not really angry here. Actually, I painted a little kitty cat here. I don't know if you could see it. I had butterflies going along here. And so they didn't put it in the exhibition, but they pay us. We exchanged. We gave other works. I made this painting with Manuel Ocampo, who's a Filipino artist. Who's just, he's worse than me. So they got a double whammy. But the thing is, the critics were disappointed that the painting was not in the show, and then they wrote a whole page saying that this painting should have been in that exhibition. It was an exhibition of contemporary artists who deal with religious imagery. So I'm gonna just move over because I really will not have time. This is more reverse anthropology books. I did this when I was living in France. This is the origin of the world, or two origins of the world. The Aztecs have an abstract idea of the origins of the world in color. Blue, white, black, and red for the 4 different directions of the universe in their mythology. So I painted sort of like a, you know, minimalist painting Aztec. More reverse anthropology. I live in Giverny for a few months, and I could not escape painting the Giverny gardens. So here is a Picasso self-portrait being attacked by an African sculpture. And in French, on the top, you say the times could go fast or slowly. And more reverse anthropology. This is my Cannibals soup brand. They might like to sell this in the cafe here. And all of them have recipes in the back. This is how you eat anthropologies with noodles. Oh, you don't see the whole thing. I'll read it for you. Anthropologies with noodles and your favorite sandwich, a quick and simple meal that's fun to eat. Add a delicious bowl of America's favorite anthropologies with noodle soup with lots of yummy noodles to your favorite sandwich. Eating anthropologies is so much fun, you're sure to smile. So, so I made a whole set. All of them have recipes in the back. So I have artist brains with rice, cream of dealer, art historian alphabet, fundraisers adobo, museum director stripe, models meat, anthropologists with noodles, collectors broth, curators liver, critics tongue, my favorite. You could see a lot of these prints right now at an exhibition at Harvey Meadows Gallery nearby. So if you go there, you probably could see better those than here. But I had this is a print I did after I have a bicycle accident, and I got a little concussion after I fall. I guess I was just thinking too much art talk, like you might see here. So more forgeries. This is about the birth of death from a Mexican book that was censored by the Holy Inquisition on the grounds that this was a book that's called The Portentous Life of Death. And the Holy Inquisition said death cannot be alive, therefore this book should not be published. So this is death when she was a little baby. And the parents. All right. So I'm going to start a little bit talking about the destruction of, there was a countryside during the conquest in all of the Americas, but in Mexico, particularly was sad because the biggest library in the continent was burned. Mexico had these pre-Columbian cultures like Mayans, the Mixtec Zapotec in Oaxaca, and the Aztecs who had thousands of books. And there was the library in the kingdom of Texcoco, which is an Aztec kingdom built by King Netzahualcoyotl. It translates as the feathered coyote. And King Netzahualcoyotl was against human sacrifices. You will never hear this from Mel Gibson movie like Apocalypto. No, at the peak of the Aztec Empire, there was an Aztec king who was against human sacrifice. King Netza, for sure. King Netza organized poetry festivals. He built up the largest library in the continent. And luckily for him, he died just about 2 years before Columbus arrived to the Americas. So he never encountered the Spaniards. But when the Spaniards arrived to Mexico City and conquered, they discovered the library. And they, according to the accounts, all the books were piled up and burned in a fire. There was a mass suicide of Indians. They could not stop them killing themselves. They hanged themselves from trees, from the jump off pyramids. And it was a really big tragedy. Today, there is 0 Aztec books that survived the conquest. All of them were burned. There are Aztec books painted by indigenous artists immediately after the conquest, within the first 10 years after the conquest, that are more following the influence of Renaissance, and they are more in Latin words and characters. But also, there was a lot of resistance to become Christianized. And here, this is a drawing done by an Aztec artist, anonymous artist, Aztec, describing the execution of indigenous leaders who refused to become Christian. The writer, Eduardo Galeano, has a great story that says, it tells the story of an Indian who was about to be executed. He was about to be burned. And the Spanish priest and soldiers asked him to convert to Christianity so he could go to heaven. And the Indians say, "Where are you all going to heaven?" And they say, "Yes, we are all going to heaven." And the Indians say, "Well, I don't want to go to heaven." So anyway, I did a painting based on that later. But based on all this story of the destruction of books, I began to do my own versions of books. The Aztecs, by the way, they burn books of other cultures that they conquer. So it's, that's maybe what made the conquest easier, because all the indigenous people they were oppressing joined the Spaniards, and they all fought against the Aztecs. The Aztecs were like the USA of the ancient Mesoamerica. So they were, they controlled the world, but everybody hated them. Here it is. I'm going to see if I could just enlarge it. I'm sorry, I'm going to lose a little bit from the edges, but this is a codex I did a few years ago about the economic collapse. So this is all about the economy. Nothing can have an intrinsic value. The value of a thing is just as much as it will bring. So that's my background in economics that comes through this book. Let's see if I can read anything else. I don't know. It's a big economic tsunami. It's affecting everybody. So now I'm going to show you the book that got me in trouble here in Colorado. This is the Misadventures of the Romantic Cannibals. And I'm sorry for this JPEG. It's really bad. So So back here on the left is the page that just got reproduced in Fox News saying, this Jesus having oral sex. I guess they really imagine things because first of all, there is no nakedness at all. And I told them, they didn't ask my intentions of it. First of all, I made this book when the pedophilia scandal took place in 2002 with, the priest molesting children. And also, I felt very irritated with the homophobia that comes out of the church. I have a lot of gay and lesbian friends everywhere. I have gay and lesbian faculty colleagues at school. I have gay and lesbian students of mine. I have a gay couple across the street that sings religious songs in a church in San Francisco. My life with that or friends will be boring and gray. So I always take, my wife and I, take great pride in our friends. And we have gone to their weddings. I mean, we cry in their weddings. They've been beautiful. When there is a short time when in San Francisco marriage was possible, we went to some. So I just felt this hypocrisy within the church that I wish they could correct it. Lately, they came with their self-study saying that the reason why priests were molesting kids was because the 60s were too permissive. What about before the 60s? But anyway, so I have shown this many times in San Francisco. It was shown at the Denver Art Museum for 4 months. Nobody complained. It went to a small town like Loveland, and it created a whole protest. And a pastor from Loveland asked me to explain my book to him. So I told him what I just told you. And he liked my explanation. He said, "Thank you for your thoughtful explanation. If you ever come to Loveland, it will be an honor to meet you." And I say, "Wow." I say, "I wish most Christians were like you." And we became friends. He was defending my work against his own congregation. His name is Pastor Jonathan Wiggins. And then he asked me, because I told him, to me this book, I'll go back. The book is, it's just my way to express corruption of the spiritual, if anything. The best ideals in humanity get corrupted by power. And if anything, that's what's going on. For me, there is no real Christ here. It's just collage from comic books and religious icons, but it's not the real icon itself. So he accepted that. So he asked me, "Will you do a non-corrupt image of Jesus for my church?" And I told him, "Well, I'm not religious myself. And nobody knows how Jesus looked like. These are different representations of Christ from different cultures. There's like, Chinese, there is Russian, there is Japanese, there is Ethiopian, there is European, there is the Mexican Christ. None of them look alike." And I told him, my Christ is not going to look like any Christ either. And so, but if your congregation wants it, I will do it for free. And I thought he's going to go back to his congregation and say, "No, forget it. This is such an atheist, crazy guy. Don't take it from him." But no, instead his congregation accepted with a standing ovation. In between, though, before all this, I was just already having this conversation with him. Somebody just came, drove all the way from Montana to Loveland with a crowbar and destroyed the book. And everybody got just crazy. I got just a wave of hate mail. Nobody asked me what the meaning behind the work was. The media, especially Fox News, was very focused on just sensationalist description, like Christ having sex, basically. No word about the pedophilia, about why I did this book. No word about my disenchantment with the homophobia in the church. Or what the church did destroying pre-Columbian cultures, which is also behind the multiple stories behind this book. They just focus on one page. When the congregation accepted my offer, I decided, well, okay, so I'm just going to do it. So I began to do my versions of Christ. So I did the underpainting, and so I sent it to the congregation. They really liked it. And I just finished the painting about 2 weeks ago. I put color on it. And let's see if it moves. All right, so, and I'm sorry, it's a really big file. I might have to get off for a minute of the slideshow and show you the whole painting here. You could see it more clearly. Yeah, but totally distorting the work and totally trashing it. They didn't ask me. They didn't. I wish I had been in the same show. They only offered me their website, and then on the website, I just got hate mail. Basically, it was not a rational discussion. Luckily, I have a really good discussion with a pastor. So let me select more words because we're running out of time. So I'm just going to show you maybe some other books that I did. Some books that I did about the economy. And these books, I show them in the Biennial in Australia, the Sydney Biennial just last year. The Enlightened Savage Guide to Economic Theory. So I'm going to go through the pages of all this book. I use pictures from the money from Australia. You know, some of the people who benefit from all this crisis having fun. Different types of currency and money, gold, the original accumulation of capital, I guess. Brains as commodity. You could interpret in many directions my books. I don't really have a specific linear narrative. That's what's behind the money. So I use the Australian flag in the background. Let's see if I could. So with all the stereotypical Aboriginal character here. This is another book I did, Surviving Paradise, a novel savage guide. This is a little bit about global warming. So these are just my most recent works from the last couple of years. I made this before the tsunami in Japan, so that's pretty weird that this happened. I made this few months before. So I'm just going to pass through several pictures. This is another drawing I did. It's called Roadmap with Alice in Wonderland, having a dialogue here with military Jesus helicopter. So like a delicate balance between the secular and the religious, which just I cannot have to experience myself in my life. So a lot of these charcoal drawings are they are based on the concept of editorial cartooning. It's a nuclear face. The only happy thing here is this guy. Where is Waldo? And this is a very tiny man. In my drawing, he's totally smiling. This is about our dependency on fossil fuels. But that's the way my cats run in our house also. So I don't know. Somebody asked me if this drawing was about George Bush father and George Bush son. I say, no, maybe this is about how history repeats itself. If I wanted to do George Bush, I will do it like him, like this. So so we could see the whole thing. So I guess I don't need to say who's who. Osama bin Laden was the witch in the back. Some people say it's a self-portrait. Don't listen to them. Those are Fox News people. I did more forgeries after Philip Gaston, who's another my favorite artist from all times. I wish I had met him. So I made a series after a series of satires that he did on Richard Nixon. So I just replaced the face of Richard Nixon by that of George Bush. Let's see if you could see it all. And so he's trying to see ideas, if they have any. The other way around. And notice the gun here. That's in the original Philip Gaston is a golf club. And I did this before the elections of 2004. And I swear, I didn't know that the Vice President Cheney was going to shoot a friend of his a few months after I did this drawing. So he did. So sometimes it's scary for me that my drawings turn a little bit premonition of dark events that are about to happen. Okay, more of the same series. It's like trying to read Arabic after they destroy it. For opportunity with my former provost, Condi. A lot of, the worst attacks on this country happened when they were having a vacation. And the word Billy is after Billy Graham, who played a big influence on George Bush to turn him into a non-alcoholic and a Christian. But also he played a role in Richard Nixon as well, so I didn't have to change the word Billy. And this is my portrait of Richard Bush or George Nixon. Again, here's the Border Patrol trying to arrest Death and saying, I command you to surrender. That's what it reads here. And then Death is saying, okay. And she's having champagne here, celebrating illegal immigration. One thing I want to say about illegal immigration, I think, the first illegal aliens, I always think, were the Pilgrims and the conquistadors, because they came to America without a passport. And they were, going against the law of the land in many indigenous nations. But, many of them were escaping repression in Europe. They were economic refugees. So that's why I have this elegy to illegal immigration, actually, because for me, the contemporary, quote-unquote, illegal aliens are, for me, the contemporary pilgrims. And this country keeps getting richer from that influence. I hope at some point all these legal issues get resolved. But most of these paintings are based on that, and on how people build borders between themselves. This is after George Bingham, a painter who painted raft boats in the Mississippi River. So, but here they might be crossing the border in the Rio Grande. But it's immigrants from everywhere, illegal aliens having a big party. Sorry about that. Go to the next. This is how Cubans are crossing the ocean. They build up rafts. And they make, this was the very first one they did, a GM truck that propels. And they stopped them, got the truck. There was a museum that wanted that truck. They sank the truck, they sent the Cubans back. But they came back twice, and the third time they stay, actually. And I hope they get a job at GM, because they're really good at making amphibious vehicles. And we need that, with global warming, a lot of cities are gonna need amphibious cars, especially on the coast. Sometimes I play with abstraction. Before I was a figurative artist, I was a non-representational artist, so sometimes I play like that. So this is my self-portrait. I am a procrastinator. And it could be my self-portrait as a lazy Mexican. Don't do today what you can do tomorrow. I just sit with my cats, read the paper, watch TV. Two illegal aliens, one in the army, one as a janitor. It's interesting, in the army in Iraq, there's a lot of undocumented immigrants. And very often they come out and they actually get papers by going that path. But it's interesting how they are trusted there. People trust them with their lives. But here, there's all this xenophobic wave that I hope it passes away, because mostly politicians, rhetoric, most of the people that I know don't have issues with xenophobia. And I think I'm just going to end my lecture, because it's almost the end. This is a bill I did after the first crisis. It's the United States of America. It's a federal, federal bailout note, and this is what the debt was about a year ago. Right now it's about 14 or almost 15 trillion dollars. But it's brought to you by Neocon Economics. And this is about the share per household. And I told the publisher, the only problem is this print is dated now. So what we did was a digital version. Right now we have a digital version where this is digital and it's updating itself every second. And it plays music in the background, so we put it with NPR in the background. It's the most anxiety-provoking piece I have ever done. I don't even want to have that in my house. That's a print I did here in Colorado about a year ago. Illegal Aliens Guide to Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And this is about pollution, social pollution, political pollution, real, ecological pollution. And the size of the country is based on the size of the pollution they produce. You could notice Africa is very small. US, China, Russia, they are like on the top. Another charcoal drawing after the economic collapse. This one is called Too Big. And that little character, this was a crisis that affected mostly middle class and working class. But here, this guy on the far right side, it says, "Hello, my name is Fuck Off." And I think the guy, the figure left could be, a Wall Street character, who knows. This is maybe a former billionaire that became a millionaire overnight. They're playing golf here. I don't know if you could read a little bit of the grotesque speed and invention in the making come to seem a part of the meaning. That's what it says here. And then here one, I'm going to read for you. Let me see if I could enlarge it. The word thematizes a certain lingering between heterogeneity and the monomaniacal. Sorry for my English. The happy interaction between rich and poor. I made an etching lately that is called My Cat Lulu's Utopia. And I did this as a project for the New School of Social Research last year. So this was part of a big installation. It was a tribute to Orozco. These drawings are based after Jose Clemente Orozco, a muralist. So this is kind of like a tribute to Orozco. And then the last works I'm going to show you are more meditational. After all this controversy, I went to a mood where I just wanted to meditate, do nothing that people would read. Here in the background, you see the Holy Family. Here you could barely see it. So these are called ghostly meditations. And here I had a dream that I keep forgetting the more I try to recall it. I think a lot of people have that same dream. I don't know if you had it. I had it. You wake up, you try to remember, and it erases furthermore. There is no narrative in this piece. Today, still forever, is kind of a meditational state. Here you could see sort of like a clock in the ears of this guy. I took these. These are drawn in the back of the paper, by the way. These are offsets of, the etchings I was using before have like facing pages. So this is the facing page. So you see the lady with a fan that I did my first reverse anthropology drawing. This is the facing page. So I painted over this one too. And in the back of it's very thin paper, so I draw in the back of the paper so you get all these transparencies. Here you are looking into a good thought. Let me see if I could enlarge, see what's happening in the middle. Not much. So this one is the artist is out meditating and will be back shortly. This is a couple that just had a baby. I don't know if you can see the baby here. And this is the here and now, another meditational element. And here you have Obama here on the bottom. And this one, it says, I am levitating in my dreams, but I will wake up soon. Then there is no statement in this work. Although I have Tarzan and Jane and Cheetah. In a background, it's sort of like a jungly. And this is the end of my talk. Don't follow me. I am lost too. This is another Cuban raft, by the way. That's a really great Cuban raft. You might see it here. Anyways, thank you very much, and I'm sorry I have to rush that.